daughter and a bunch of her friends want to play D&D, so I said I would run a campaign for them, but they are going to need a few things to play. The first and most important is a set of dice. So I'm going to try casting some dice out of resin for them. I started with a test of creating a mold from silicone rubber. I mixed up some silicone and poured it into the little mold I had made from Lego. My first try failed miserably and had to be completely scrapped. But not being one to give up when I fail, I tried again, and this time being very careful about measuring my ratios for the silicone. And it worked great. I also carved a tiny skull out of plaster to put into one of the dice, and I made a mold of that too so that I could cast more skulls later. The next task was to try out this Art & Glow Epoxy that I ordered off of Amazon. Luckily, it's a 1-to-1 mix, so not much chance to mess it up here. I also added some white ink to the epoxy, then started filling my molds. I had way more epoxy than I needed for the one die in the skull that I was making, so I used the extra epoxy on this Hearst Arts mold that I had for a graveyard set. While my vibrating platform ran to help raise the bubbles to the top, I filled all the molds with epoxy. I then added a touch of black ink to the die mold to try to give it a smoky, wispy effect. Then I topped everything off and let them cure. When it was done curing, I pulled out the die and was pretty happy with the results. So I moved on to scaling up and creating a large full set mold with a nice set of sharp edge dice that I had. I carefully mixed up the silicone and poured it out, creating first the base and then the cap for the full set mold. For the base, I mixed the regular ratio of rubber to catalyst, but for the cap I decided to mix in a little more catalyst as the piece would be much thinner than the base. I also applied a little bit of petroleum oil to the base to try to help release the cap piece. And it did a pretty good job. I released the mold and then I was ready to mix the epoxy. I also painted the tiny skull I had cast and added it to the D20's spot. I skipped adding the white ink this time and just added some black tinted wisps for the smoky effect. I filled the rest of the mold hit the epoxy with a flame to pop the bubbles, and then capped it off and left it to cure. When it was done curing, I opened it up and removed the dice, and they looked great. I then went on to cast 3 more sets: a plague set in green and orange, a demon set in red with black smoky wisps, and a thief set in pure black. So I ended up with 5 full sets, including the original one that I had. Next up, I did some cleanup of the edges, removing the leftover flashing, and I tried to do some wet polishing on them. I wasn't really thrilled with the polish, as it ended up dulling the finish on the resin. I'd have to go back and look at this again later. But I moved on to painting the numbers anyway. I went with white on the smoky ones, black on the red ones, gray for the black ones, and green on the green and orange ones. I then decided, in order to try and clean up the polish job, to use some fingernail polish as a sealer and to give the dice a nice finish. I ended up using a thinned down polish with half 100% acetone, which worked great. The last little detail was to paint the 20 on the D20s. I ended up only doing the red one with red on the D20, but I decided to paint all the high numbers on all the green ones in orange, which looked great. So there you have it. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe and click the bell to see what I create next in this series.